I'm here with Mélanie Laurent, the writer and director of Le Bal des Folles, the Mad Woman's Ball. Mélanie, thank you so much for being here and for bringing your film to the festival.
I'm so sad to not being here for real, but
but at least we get a chance to talk.
Yeah, I know, and I'm so proud, and I was so moved to know like the movie will be in Tiff, so I was really honored.
Oh, it's our pleasure to have you back with another film. Now, the story of the film is fictional, but the situation is real. I want to begin by asking you what inspired you to adapt this novel by Victoria Mass to tell the story of Eugénie Cléry and Jean-Martin Charcot.
Well, it's life is funny sometimes. Like I really wanted to make a movie a little bit more feminist. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want feminism to be the biggest theme of the movie. I wanted more. I wanted like a real story and also like talk about other things. And I really wanted at that moment to make a period of time movie. Like that was my obsession at that moment. I really wanted to talk about, instead of making a movie about modern life and modern women today, I wanted to talk about like where we're coming from. And I was looking for a story who would tell me like the oppression of women a century ago, just to have that feeling, an uncomfortable feeling of, oh my God, it was yesterday. Well, like women were treated yesterday like this. So I just wanted to find a subject and a true story to just like talk about like, yeah, what happened to us and all the progress we need to do. And also never forget that there is still so many countries where that sort of situation could totally happen.
Yes, very true. Even before we get to Charcot's asylum and the brutal conditions there, you show us immediately a world where Eugénie is very constrained. Even just taking a simple walk through the city is something that's almost scandalous for her family. Can you talk a little bit about, beyond psychiatry and the medical establishment, what details were important to you to show of her life?
I think I wanted to work on two different ways to film everything. Like the first part of the movie is always track. It's very quiet. I really work on the sound because to me, bourgeoisie and even today, luxury is to hear the silent.
Yes.
And to have like a quiet place. And I wanted to work on a quiet place when you can also feel there is no love and there is so much tension because there is no words in that super hard family and tough on everything. And I wanted her to be, every time she wants to go outside that very tense big flat, there is movement, there is sound. But I didn't want my camera to move with her. I wanted to hold that camera and waiting for her to be in that hospital to suddenly switch from tracks to Steadicam and really like showing how the new world is beginning and there is no more silent at all. Even when she's down, I don't know how you say cachot, when she's punished and she's in jail, under the ground. Even there is no silence. Even there, she can hear other women screaming and being on pain, and so it was really important for me to work on small details who's supposed to be a real comfort and luxury, and the fact like suddenly she can smoke and have a glass of wine somewhere, who's like totally insane for that period of time. Going to Martre is like unbelievable. So I wanted to play on that, but also feeling like it feels like she's stuck. It feels like there is nothing who moves. And then when she arrives there, there is so many women, so many possibilities, so many friendships, so many. And then in that second part, we also worked on two parts, saying like it has to be scary first, and then more the movie get going, more there is warmness, like more there is real people who just actually is going to bring her something very warm and beautiful. And so yeah, we had so much fun of working on all those camera movement, and symbols.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's nice. Yeah, all of the technical details really are there to tell the story of how her perception of her world changes, and as the world around her changes too. You have an extraordinary performance from Laâge, and I want to ask you about casting that role. What were you looking for in casting Eugénie, and what did you find in Laâge?
I mean, I worked with her 2 times before. I worked with her on my second movie. She was brilliant in that movie. She was super tough. She was playing a sociopath, and she really amazed me. And then I became close to her, and we worked on a play that I directed 2 or 3 years after. So basically, I'm working with Lou every 2 or 3 years, and I'm seeing her growing. She's seen me growing old, but I'm just seeing her growing. Let's say that. And it's wonderful to see someone you like, someone you love, someone you trust, who's really like a real soldier, who's totally like totally here for you, so generous, really a big worker, who totally got everything I'm saying. We almost not talking anymore on set, and she became amazing with emotion. I remember on Brie that getting that emotion was like not difficult, but more difficult than today. And on Le Bal, she was like killing it, like every scene, and I was really amazed by her performance every single day. And I was not supposed to be in the movie, but playing with her was such a pleasure. And it's always weird to do both, but if you take aside the fact you're tired and you never want to be in costume, you never want to go to my makeup, except that the pleasure of being on set with your actors and playing with them and sharing things with them is kind of special.
Mm-hmm. This is actually what I wanted to ask you about next. Playing Geneviève. So you wrote the screenplay based on the book. You're directing the film. You must have a million details in your head every day on set. But you're also acting in scenes, and you have to be very present in those scenes with her and with the other actors. How do you do that?
And I have my kids on set. I don't know. I mean, like, I was tired for sure. And that was this very weird prep and shooting, because we really shot in the middle of the second wave of COVID. So we were like tested twice a week. We had to find solutions to have one location, one town, make sure everything's going to be safe for people. I had to have like way less extras. I had to figure out how to make everybody safe. So the crew was small, cafe, restaurant, like everything was close. But we picked a town with like no cases, with a safe hospital near, like you had to just like do everything. But and then the fact we were like so lucky to make that movie in that situation, I think it gave me so much strength, I think. And I felt so lucky every day, and I was like, I need to find the energy to just like being thankful for everything that's happening right now. That was so hard at that moment for movies to exist and be able to make a period of time movie, and we shot in film. We were like, like trying really to do cinema and keeping that spirit of making a movie. And so in those circumstances, that was really weird. But I mean, I'm always super happy as a director. I love my actors. They always like great human wise, and they're super gifted. And so I'm never really tired. I'm tired after, but when I'm shooting, I love directing movies so much. Like I'm waking up every morning super excited. So.
Well, I'm glad that you love it, because you should keep directing movies. You're a wonderful filmmaker.
Thank you.
You mentioned before at the beginning that you wanted to make a film that was more feminist. I actually think all your films are feminist in some way, but this was clearly part of the inspiration here. I want to ask you about this particular moment in medical history. There's been a lot of feminist critique of psychiatry and psychology from the very origins. And people have taken Freud and Jung and Charcot and all of the others, to task for almost building a medical system of investigation that was from the beginning against women. And I guess I want to ask you if you think that this was already built into psychiatry, or if it could have gone another path. Was there a way that what Charcot was doing and the others could have been different, or was it always based on a misunderstanding of women?
And Freud, by the way, was working with Charcot.
Yes.
He was at the Salpêtrière. Well, it's a complex question. I mean, I think for them, they were like doing the right thing. I think for them, they were like helping women. That's the whole misunderstanding. They really thought they were like helping them and save them. And Charcot was a weird character, because in life he was very successful. He's one of the first successful doctor in history. He was kind of like a movie star, really. He had like a lot of money, but he was really journalists and writers were super tough on him, because when he's starting to say that women were hysterical, he had like a lot of critics in the papers who were saying like, be careful, because everything you're doing is like hysterical if you listen to Charcot. So a lot of people made fun of him. So I guess those men at that moment was treating those sick women as a very weak, totally lost souls. And because Charcot was also working with very rich mental women, but that was in another clinic. So that was a very different place. So he was probably never treated those rich women in that case, in that way. So I think it was really like a caste and a politic thing also, like, and honestly, today, if you think about like how women are treated in so many other countries, and how they just like die for no reason, and how they just like arrest and seen as crazy still all the time, even in modern countries. You know, if you do too many things, if you speak too loud, if you have too much power, if you're the crazy one.
I want to ask you a little bit about the character that you chose to play in the film, Geneviève, because in a way she's both a victim of Charcot, but also a victimizer, at least at the beginning, to other women. And there's some complicity involved in the role she plays. Can you talk about why that was interesting for you to play?
Well, I love the switch. The switch. The switch. You say? Yeah. I really love when I read the book, the introduction of Geneviève. So cold, so tough, but also like you can feel there is something inside her, and you know she's gonna be like, she's gonna change. And I love the idea of having that character who feels very alive when she's totally dead, who feels very free when she's absolutely not, who feels she has a power as a doctor and realizes she doesn't. Someone who really believes so many things and just didn't believe that maybe she can talk to her sister. So it's really like, I think it's the movie talks about maybe not religion, but belief. And that switch between someone who always going to believe in something, who's never going to change, who's only going to adapt herself and use the fact she's in a hospital to finally maybe use her gift to make people feel better. That meeting between those two characters was really the power of that book. Because if you just treat the subject as Eugénie, she's just like a little bit a rebel, and she goes to that hospital, which was like, could be the case. She could have been just like, I don't want to get married, and she would have been like in the hospital at that moment. But we talk about spirits. We're talking about something very interesting, because at that period of time, Victor Hugo, and that's why that was not in the book, but that's why I really wanted to open the movie with Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo lost his daughter, and she drowned herself in the Seine, and he was in love with that daughter and suffered so much that he really was one of the pioneer of when you talk to spirits, he's starting the spiritism. And when you think about that, that was fashionable at that moment. Every man was like smoking cigar, having a brandy, and were like playing with ghosts and really believe in it. And I really wanted to start with that icon that Eugénie loves. Victor Hugo was everything. She goes to that funeral. For her, he's the hero. And she feels also connected to him because she's the same. She sees spirits and she believes in it. But because she's a woman, she's totally insane. When every other man are seeing like, oh my God, this is so cool. We can see spirits and see them and talk to them. So that was really interesting to discover that. Like I didn't know about that Victor Hugo story, and I didn't know I could just like make it happen in the movie too, and just relate also everything, and just to show with the opening scene, like you don't belong here, even if you probably the only one who can see spirit, by the way.
Exactly. She also has a wonderful line of dialogue in the film about, why is it acceptable to believe in God but not spirits? You know, there's official spiritualism in religion, and then there's the unofficial that she feels, and I thought that was a very interesting thing to explore as well.
Yeah, that's why the story was complex. That was with all those layers of. It talks about that. It talks about belief. It talks about patriarchat. It talks about friendship. It talks about death. It talks about missing people. There is so many, and then also all those different characters around her. Who suffers. Like I was shocked when I was starting to work in prep. I read a small book, and that was an amazing book. And it was from a doctor it was just like exactly the same period of time with Charcot, and it was just symptoms and you had like the name of the woman and why they were here, and it was insane. It was like she's a little bit depressed, she's melancholic. She's changing moods. Like description of like nothing crazy, like nothing crazy. And just because they were like, melancholic, and also when you go deep into those stories, because I really loved doing that, even from like extras to have like stories to feed them, I just realized so many women at that moment in the hospital were like dropped there because they've been raped, violent, and then because of the reaction of obviously being traumatized, they were like seen as totally insane. So it's beyond unfair. It's like when you think about that, it just like drives me crazy.
And not just insane, but in need of control by the hospital as well. I want to ask you a little bit more about that, because this idea of the mad woman, the so-called mad woman, is a very big figure in 19th century literature, in cinema, in contemporary culture. But it seems like there's been a shift where now filmmakers, writers see the power in that, rather than seeing a woman who's called mad as a victim or something to be afraid of. Now it's someone who's powerful. And in superhero, you have characters like Harley Quinn and others who seem crazy, but that's the source of their power. And I wonder if you see a kind of evolution there.
Well, I'm still hearing that I'm crazy most of the time.
What?
Just because
are you crazy?
I'm not. I mean, like, I think it's pretty rare to be crazy today and be allowed to be crazy. And I think it's special. And I think every artist, in a way, are crazy. And I think we're living in a crazy world, and I don't feel, I feel like the crazy ones are maybe the right ones in a way. And when I see that pandemic, and when I see like the new world, when I see the climate change, when I see the world's falling apart everywhere, and how, politics and people just like deal with that, I'm like, that they are definitely the crazy ones. But yeah, in cinema, craziness was like, it's always like an amazing subject, and it's so cinematographic also, and very tricky, because it's hard. First of all, it's hard for an actor to act that sort of parts, because you need to be like very truthful, and it's a really big work. And what I loved doing in my movie was like, let's never show anyone crazy, you know? So I picked, and that was very moving. I picked extras, and they were like most of them never worked. And almost like 90% of those women had handicaps.
Okay.
And so they sent me videos, and I couldn't stop crying for like days. And they were like, so I only have one leg, and I would love for you to film me because I feel I'm still beautiful. And then like so many women showed up with like one arm, one leg, scoliosis, shaking. I had a trisomic. I had all those singular women, and they all came, and they were so patient, and they were so amazing, and they brought so much to the movie. And I remember the first day of shooting, they were like all in that huge bedroom, and I made a big speech, and my first AD was mad at me because I was like so late, and I was like, okay, I want you to pick your bed, to think about your story, and to ask yourself, are you crazy? And do you deserve to be here? Because if you think you're a little bit crazy, you're going to change your way to look at other people. You're going to change your whole backstory, and you're going to bring something totally different than if you play someone who's locked down here and it's unfair. Yeah. And it was so beautiful because we had that moment of silence, and they all picked their bed. And then I was like, so now I want you to just like close your eyes, and I want you to think about how, describe in your head what happened when you arrived here, and then open your eyes and choose someone in that room to be your friend here as a prison. And it was really great because we did like 30 minutes of that, but then those 30 minutes that I lost on my schedule, worth it, because every time we were like doing like action, everything felt real, you know. And they were like so beautiful between each other, and they were like so careful and so generous, and I was really, really like moved and honored to have like all those very strong women everywhere.
Mm-hmm. You did a beautiful job because you've got this remarkable story happening in the foreground with Eugénie and your character and Charcot and the others, but in the background, you're right. You feel like there are all of these other stories happening as well. They have a kind of a real texture to them. That's all the time we have, unfortunately, but I want to thank you for this conversation and for the film. I think it's just a beautiful film, and an important one as well, because it has so much to say, not just about then, but about what's happening now as well. So Mélanie Laurent, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a nice festival, and thank you all. And I'm so sad not being here.
We are as well. Thank you.